Hey, welcome to another episode of Dustin's Shed. We've got the Audi S6 V10 today with the wannabe Lamborghini engine in it. They are closely related but not quite the same. And we're going to have a look. It's got some oil leaks and sometimes it misfires on startup. But we'll get it, put it on the hoist and get it up in the air, see where it's leaking from, see how we can fix it, go from there. So we're up in the air now and we'll just go for a bit of a walk around, but you can see there's a small amount of oil kind of dripping off the under tray. So we should be able to find something hopefully that's leaking pretty easily, I would imagine, but we'll see. They can be pretty well hidden, but while we're here we might as well just check everything else. This has been sitting for quite some time, which is why that disc is rusty. Nothing major, it's just been sitting in the garage waiting for me to do this. Nothing too exciting under here. The exhaust is all attached, the diff's not leaking. Everything appears to be in order. Right. All looks good. All looks good, so we'll pull these under trays off so we can see what we're dealing with and see where the oil's coming from, and then work out a plan of how to stop it all falling out of the engine. Fun. Right, so yeah, there's a little bit of oil along here, but not too much at the back, but when you look forward there's plenty at the front, so being that the oil's naturally going to go back this way, we probably should start at the front and see what we can see. But you can see it's dripping off there, the sump's saturated with oil, all this front is quite wet with oil dripping off the back of the alternator. Hard to say where it's coming from at this stage, but we might have to dig a little bit further and see. But if you look up somewhere up there, the camera won't focus, you can see oil up there, so it's highly likely that it's leaking down from up the top. So we'll go up the top and have a look there, see what we can see. So the biggest problem with having a V10 in a car like this is packaging, because as you can not really see, there's actually no room to get it much down the front or down the back of the engine. So but in saying that, it does appear that the may just be leaking out of the tappet covers. It's wet all there along the bottom of the coils, on the other side, all along the top around the high pressure fuel pump where that bolts on, and looking from underneath it's actually dripping off the far corner of this tappet cover, I think. So I'll pull out some of these air intake pipes so we can have a look, and then we may just slide the front forward so we can see a bit more, depending on how much I can see with those pipes out. So I'm still not 100% convinced as to where this is leaking from. It is, you can't really see too much without the mirror down there, which I don't have enough hands to do, but it is pretty wet on the bottom corners of the tappet covers. I kind of see a bit more on this one. That cam sensor there, it's actually wet on that and dripping onto the coolant pipe below, but we still can't really see down the front, so I might just slide the front forward. It's not hard to do. just make sure that we're actually fixing the problem and not what we think is the problem. And my camera battery's going flat, so I'm going to stop for now, go have something to eat, charge the camera, and then come back out here and have another go at it. Right, me and the camera are both fully recharged now, so we'll get into pulling the front bumper off this thing and see if we can see where this oil is coming from. Turns out some nice person's broken the clips off the daytime running lights, so we'll take those out. So we've now found some of the front of the car and a few little strange bits, like this is probably supposed to be attached to either the bumper or the car. Probably the car. But it's not really. So we'll fix that so the bumper stays on. Kind of handy. And there's some wiring here somewhere. Ah, it's on the bumper loom that someone has ripped off in the past. I'm guessing it's from a temperature sensor or something, so we'll have a look at that as well. But for now we'll pull out the headlights and then we should be able to hopefully get some of the front out of the road so we can actually see the front of the engine. Soon see. Right, now we can actually see in there, we can have a bit more of a look hopefully. Not really the easiest thing to see on the camera, but down by that bracket, try this end of the torch, you can see that there's a clean patch where the oil's been running down, and there's a small hole in the casting there which drains the oil out of the valley. So it's something probably in the valley. It's quite wet in there, and we were going to pull the manifold off anyway, so that just gives us a better reason to pull the manifold off. So we'll whip that off and
See where it's coming from? Probably oil filter housing seals or something like that. So we'll get that off and see. In theory, now we should be able to take that throttle body off, but that's just a theory. We'll see. I'll just take the last bolt out and we'll be good. Here we go. So we're just going to get out the compressed air because down in the edge of the manifold there is a whole lot of rat poo and dirt and leaves and dog biscuits, God knows what that is, which we don't really want to go down into the manifold when we take that off, so we'll just get the compressed air and blow that stuff out of there. We've covered up any kind of interesting holes it could go into. Get rid of that before we go any further so we don't fill everything up with the rubbish. Right, so our rat poo and dog food, it actually does smell like it was dog food. I'm guessing the rats were stashing it there for a feed later on. It's now all gone, so we'll carry on. Whole lot of the electrical connectors down here that are obviously for something under the manifold. So I think it's time to take off these high pressure fuel lines. And a couple of coolant hoses, and then start gently lifting things up and see what happens. It's a bit easy. Like I said, high pressure fuel lines, so just in case. Two fuel lines. So now in theory we should be able to take off these hoses, which are coolant, and then start undoing some stuff, and it might even lift up. Maybe. Just maybe. Only one way to find out though. Not gonna do it. PCV valve is in the road. Or the engine bracket's in the road. Something's in the road. Just take off the engine lifting bracket and hopefully it should slide forward past it. Hopefully. Now what have we got? Oh, another wiring. Anyway, we'll take that bracket off. Little position sensors on the front of the engine, and when I'm lifting it up, on the front of the manifold, when I'm lifting it up, they're hitting on the engine lifting brackets. Which Audi has lovingly put plenty of them on, even though you drop the engine out the bottom in the subframe anyway, so not really that useful. At the moment anyway. Right. Now we're really getting somewhere. Things are moving and everything. Something is stopping it coming forward. I just don't know what, but we'll work it out. think I know what. The PCV valve has a hose on the bottom of it that goes around the air filter. Oil filter. And is stopping us from coming forward again. So back to taking this stupid thing off. There's probably a real easy way to do this, which I'm sure we'll find out once we get the manifold off. That'll be glaringly obvious. That just makes it easier next time I have to do one, which will highly likely be never. But that's all part of the fun of working on cars. Right, attempt number 75. Hey, look at that. Stuff was happening. Now our wiring is getting pulled up.
So I managed to break the camera here somehow, and it stopped halfway through, but basically we got the manifold off and found that there was a whole lot of carbonate in the intake ports, which you'll see very shortly.
And the other thing I should probably mention is, sure enough, there's a big puddle of oil down the bottom, all around the back. It's been all mixed with fuel now that's dribbled out, but that's just plain old oil in there, and it runs its way down the valley and out these lovely little drain holes in the front that they've put there, just there, and probably the same on the side. Yep. Uh-oh. Can I get that? You'll just have to believe me, there's one on this side as well. So all that oil is leaking out of the oil filter housing O-ring there, more than likely, and just running to the front and running down the front of the motor and dribbling off the bottom. So we'll fix that by pulling that oil filter housing off and replacing that O-ring, and probably replacing that O-ring on that plate as well, whatever that happens to be. Pulling all these little inserts out and then giving the valves a good clean when they're closed. So we'll just have to wind the engine over till each cylinder's closed and then give them a clean out. I don't know if you can see that, there's a big lump on the side, like a giant lump of carbon built up on the side of the valve. It's actually really quite unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it till now. Quite big amounts of lift too, actually, for a little valve. But anywho, we'll go and get these inserts out, and then take this camera battery, which has obviously decided to die completely because it's flat again, and have another go. So now you should be able to see quite easily the big lump of carbon that's actually on the stem of the valve. The rest of them aren't quite as bad as that, although that one's pretty bad. There's not even a reasonable one. Oh, this one's not too bad, if the camera will focus. But still massive amounts of carbon now I've taken those inserts out. So we'll get it onto intake valves closed on each cylinder and go through and clean them all individually and fix our oil leak, put it all back together. Yippee.
So obviously we've got to order some bits for the S6, intake manifold gaskets, tappet cover gaskets, a couple of O-rings, the oil filter housing O-ring, and some intake cleaner to get all the carbon out of there, which will be quite a fun job. So we'll do that as a part 2, because I don't quite know when I'm going to have it yet, because it's a long weekend. So hopefully in stock in New Zealand, but you never know, with the V10 could be ex-overseas, so we'll find out on Tuesday when we get back to work. And just a couple of updates on some other things around here.
I have it on reasonably good authority that we're going to get the truck that this supercharger kit goes on in July. So that should hopefully be getting a video done soon. The green Beetle we've got another gearbox here for. Possibly or possibly not going to fit. We've got to look into that a bit further because it looks to be the same as the one I already have over here. So we'll do a bit more investigation on that, see whether we can do something with it, because I haven't managed to find a input shaft for the old type gearbox yet, so we might go up to the synchromesh. And the Landcruiser, I have got a 4.5 litre 1FZ FE engine for that. It's on its way now. It got picked up on Friday from down in the bottom of the South Island. And I've got a 5-speed Landcruiser gearbox and everything for it as well, which I've just got to put back together. And so we'll at some stage be getting that out and sitting the other one in there just as a mock-up. And then we've got turbo manifolds and stuff to make, and intercooler and all sorts of things for it before we can go too much further. And the little Corolla's still sitting there doing nothing. At some stage I was going to do it last night, but I ran out of energy. Take the motor out of that so we can clean up the engine bay and sit the other one in there and get it mounted up. And then yeah, the Starlet's still sitting there doing nothing, and the same with the Pontiac. Nothing's happened to that either, but we'll get there. If you want to see any more work on any of those or the rest of this thing, and that is going to be quite fun, that Landcruiser, by the time we get that done. She'll be a very interesting build. Then hit the subscribe button and we'll put some more videos up when we can. Cheers.